hacking hearing.
Every American should be alarmed by Russia's attacks on our nation.
Senators question top intelligence officials on the role Russia played in the U.S. election. And the president-elect responds. Pro-abortion pushback. Planned Parenthood's president rallies support on Capitol Hill, a day after House Republicans go after the industry. Christian persecution, what the faithful are facing as they try to return to their homes in Iraq. And healing words.
Ritrovarsi.
The Holy Father's message to Italian earthquake victims, today in the Vatican. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, January 5th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C. Thank you to those of you joining us from around the world. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Sources say President-elect Donald Trump is tapping former Indiana Senator Dan Coats as National Intelligence Director. Coats is a conservative who spent 16 years in the Senate. He announced his retirement last year and did not seek re-election. America's current intelligence chief says Russia interfered in the 2016 presidential election, and at a hearing on Capitol Hill, the director of national intelligence says Moscow poses a major threat to the United States. Jason Calvi was at the hearing and has reaction from lawmakers. Jason.
Lauren, National Intelligence Director James Clapper stopped short of calling Russian hacking an act of war. He was questioned by the Senate Armed Services Committee today. Clapper pushed back against criticism leveled against U.S. intelligence by Donald Trump.
This was actually part of a multifaceted campaign that the Russians mounted. Use of social media, fake news. They exercised all of those capabilities in addition to the hacking.
Director of National Intelligence James Clapper in the hot seat today. He says he'll give evidence to Congress in a report next week.
You all will ascribe a motivation to Putin?
Yes, we will ascribe a motivation. I'd rather not, again, preempt the report.
Senator John McCain, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, says Russia did meddle in the election.
Well, I think that it's pretty obvious that if they were putting out disinformation during an election campaign that they wanted to affect the outcome of the election, I think that's pretty obvious. Why? Why do they do all the things that they do? They are trying to undermine every country in the Baltics.
Russia didn't manipulate the election results, in McCain's view, but he calls Russia's interference an unprecedented attack on our democracy. That included hacking Democratic emails released by WikiLeaks. In some, Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta revealed efforts to undermine the Catholic Church. Republicans like Senator Ted Cruz say Russia didn't impact the election.
And I think that the election was decided because of a failed agenda that Hillary Clinton embraced that isn't working.
Clapper wouldn't discuss whether Russia's goal was to help Trump win. His testimony comes a day before the future commander-in-chief receives a briefing by the CIA, FBI, and Clapper.
Be skeptical, but realize that the people who are going to brief you are the best among us. They try really hard to get it right. And when it comes to cyber attacks, it's probably the evidence is just overwhelming.
Director Clapper also said that the Russian interference did not impact the vote totals. Lauren?
How's the U.S. responding, Jason?
Well, Senator Lindsey Graham says he's going to propose new sanctions to hit Vladimir Putin personally and his inner circle. This follows sanctions that have already been leveled against Russia by President Obama.
Okay, Jason Calvi, thank you so much, reporting on Capitol Hill. President-elect Donald Trump is questioning the CIA and FBI findings. Trump reportedly believes U.S. spy agencies are too bloated and too politicized. Wyatt Goolsbee continues our team coverage from the White House.
Lauren, Trump's incoming White House press secretary is denying that claim, which was first reported in the Wall Street Journal. Sean Spicer says Trump has no plans to overhaul either the CIA nor the National Intelligence Office. One day before a high-level intel briefing in New York, President-elect Trump is pushing back against accusations he doesn't trust U.S. spy agencies. In a morning tweet, Trump says, quote, "The dishonest media like saying that I am in agreement with Julian Assange. Wrong. I simply state what he states. It is for the people to make up their own minds as to the truth. The media lies to make it look like I am against intelligence, when in fact, I am a big fan." But Trump is turning up the pressure on intelligence officials to provide decisive evidence of Russian election interference. Critics connect Trump to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, who says Russia did not give his group emails hacked from the Democratic National Committee. Democrats aren't buying it.
During the campaign, WikiLeaks was helpful to him. Assange was helpful to him. During the campaign, the Russian hacks were helpful to him. And Donald Trump does not bite the hand that feeds him.
Mike Pence on Capitol Hill yesterday hit back.
I think that the president-elect has expressed his very sincere and healthy American skepticism about intelligence conclusions.
Incoming White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer is also clarifying Trump's position.
The president-elect is more skeptical of the conclusions that are drawn from the raw data rather than the intelligence in the raw data that's provided.
Spicer says Trump is looking forward to Friday's intel briefing with the heads of the CIA, FBI, and National Intelligence. President Obama also received his own intelligence briefing this afternoon, and reportedly, we should say, he is taking the matter, quote, quite seriously. Now, the White House says that all 17 U.S. intelligence agencies agree that Russia did meddle in the election. Lauren?
Wyatt, has Trump received any support for his skepticism from lawmakers?
Well, not from Democrats. They see this as sort of a political issue, if you will, that could delegitimize his presidency. Republicans, on the other hand, denied that claim. We heard from Ted Cruz and Jason Calvi's piece, but also today, Senator John McCain said the bigger issue here that he's concerned about is the fact that a foreign entity hacked into an American political party's website. Lauren?
Wyatt Goolsbee at the White House. Thank you, Wyatt. House Speaker Paul Ryan says Republicans will slash federal dollars for Planned Parenthood as part of the GOP effort to repeal Obamacare. Ryan is getting pushback from the House's pro-abortion caucus. They held a press conference laying out their plans to protect abortion providers. Elise Hogue, president of the pro-choice group NARAL, warned that Republicans have awakened a sleeping giant. And the head of Planned Parenthood, Cecile Richards, addressed the group, touting the preventative health services that Obamacare currently covers.
When career politicians like Speaker Ryan pledge to defund Planned Parenthood, he's basically pledging to deny women access to basic health care across this country.
When we tried to ask Richards about losing support for abortion in Congress, Cecile Richards refused to talk to us. President-elect Donald Trump has a message for Republicans and Democrats: get together. In a series of tweets, Trump says the two sides need to design a replacement for Obamacare. The tweets contradict Trump's advice to Republicans a day earlier to stay focused on blaming Democrats for the law. And joining us now is Genevieve Woods, Senior Fellow in Communications with the Heritage Foundation, and Bob Cusack, Editor-in-Chief of The Hill. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Genevieve, Speaker Ryan said today that House Republicans are going to offer an alternative to Obamacare. For the last 7 years, they've been trying to get rid of Obamacare. We do not have a plan from them. What do you think is going to happen? Are they ever going to come up with a plan that they can agree on?
Well, I would disagree that they have no plan or no skeleton for one. I mean, Tom Price, congressman from Georgia, who's going to be, if confirmed, the new head of Health and Human Services, he introduced an alternative to Obamacare back in 2009 and has done so every year since he's been in Congress since. That's contained a lot of the ideas that you're talking about, whether it's tax credits, whether it's allowing people to buy health care across state lines. A lot of the ideas you hear Republicans talking about now, they've had some plans in Congress to do it, but the focus has been repeal, because you got to do that first before you can put together other major legislation. I'll add one other point. I don't think the Republican answer ought to be a new massive health care bill to replace the massive health care bill they want to get rid of. That was part of the problem with Obamacare, was that everything in the kitchen sink in it.
And everything was in it. Bob, Maine Senator Susan Collins has said that she will not support repealing Obamacare if it is tied to defunding Planned Parenthood. So even if the House successfully votes to repeal, what happens when it gets to the Senate?
Well, in the Senate, they have 52 Republicans, so they can afford to lose 2 Republicans at most. If it's 50-50, then Mike Pence would be the tie-breaking vote. So I don't think it's going to be changing. I think that Planned Parenthood gets votes like Ted Cruz and other conservatives. So it doesn't matter if it gets 50 or 51 or 52. They just need it to pass. So I think the Planned Parenthood, it's been a big question whether they would include it. I think it stays in there.
Genevieve?
I absolutely think, look, I mean, if we can believe what Donald Trump said, which is he wants to defund Planned Parenthood, Republicans that ran for both the House and Senate said they wanted to defund Planned Parenthood, they've got to make good on that promise. And I don't see that there's any reason not to because they've got the majorities right now.
You know, we just saw Cecile Richards on Capitol Hill today, and she is putting up a big fight here, touting the health benefits of Planned Parenthood, playing down the abortion piece of that. Do you think that this campaign will make a difference?
I don't think so on their part. Here's the reality. I think this is an issue where Planned Parenthood, and they know this to be the case, it's not that those dollars are not going to go to help women's health. Republicans, Paul Ryan, what he's talking about doing is redirecting those dollars to health centers, community health centers around the country. By the way, there are about 20-to-1 more of those than there are Planned Parenthood centers around the country. So more women will have access to the very care that they need than if Planned Parenthood is actually getting those dollars. I think we had that debate again. I think that's actually good for the pro-life movement.
And just to move on, Bob, next week confirmation hearings begin with Senator Jeff Sessions, and conservatives really want him to be Attorney General. Many do. Should we expect fireworks, however?
Oh, we're going to definitely see some fireworks. Now, remember, they only need a majority of Republicans. So, and this is also, it's going to be an interesting decision for Democrats. This is one of their own, one in the upper chamber. But before he was a senator, 1986, he was up for confirmation. He was rejected, actually, by a Republican Senate. But I think they're going to press him on how he would enforce the Voting Rights Act. What does he think about criminal sentencing reform, which is a bipartisan bill? I think they're going to press him on a number of issues, and the left is pressing their Democratic senators to oppose him. I think some will, and I think some will actually might support Sessions.
Quickly, very quickly.
Look, there's a number of Democratic senators who are going to be up for re-election just a couple of years, and they're going to want to be concerned about that.
That's right. Okay, right. Genevieve Wood, Senior Fellow in Communications with the Heritage Foundation. Bob Cusack, Editor-in-Chief at The Hill. Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. A policeman and a court employee are dead after a car bomb exploded outside a courthouse in western Turkey. 5 others are hurt. Police killed 2 assailants and detonated a second vehicle found near the scene. Investigators believe the outlawed Kurdistan Workers' Party is to blame. Soldiers in Nigeria find another kidnapped Chibok schoolgirl wandering near Boko Haram's camp. The group kidnapped nearly 300 girls from a government boarding school in April of 2014. Just under 24 girls have been released or have escaped. More than 200 remain missing. Hundreds of Italian earthquake survivors meet with Pope Francis.
La tenerezza davanti al dolore.
The Holy Father says the wounds will heal, but the scars will remain for a lifetime. 800 people who lost loved ones, homes, and livelihoods were accompanied by their bishops and local authorities. 3 months ago, when Francis visited the areas hardest hit by the earthquakes, he didn't make speeches. Instead, he said he had come to comfort the afflicted and to pray. Ed Penton, Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register, joins us. Ed, the Holy Father mentioned solidarity. How has that been manifested after the earthquake?
Well, in various ways. I know from Norcia, the solidarity has been immense, and the monks up there who sadly had their monastery and the basilica destroyed in the earthquake, they've been getting solidarity from all over the world, from many countries, and they've been very, very impressed and moved by it. And the prior there, Father Benedict Nivakov, said that it was rather like the 3 wise men coming to Norcia and bringing them gifts. They've been given lots of gifts to continue the monastery there, and especially important now because it's very cold up there now, and they need a lot of material support as well as spiritual support.
It must be difficult for them to recover, especially in the cold. How is that going?
I think it's going all right. They've moved outside of the city now, and they've moved to a sort of makeshift accommodation up there. But I think they're going to rebuild up there and make the monastery permanent up there. But it used to be in the city, but sadly that building wasn't seismic proof, and if it wasn't destroyed, it was uninhabitable. So they've had to move out to this place, which they were renovating anyway, and hope to make it a monastery as well.
How old was the place that was destroyed?
I think it goes back to the Middle Ages, I believe, or just after. And the basilica was very old. But unfortunately, like all of Norcia, all of the churches there were destroyed, although the other buildings remained. So it was a very shocking time for the people there. and especially for the region as a whole, where many historic buildings, as well as lots of lives, of course, were lost in the earthquakes over the summer and in October.
Ed Penton, thank you so much for your report. He's our Rome correspondent for EWTN's National Catholic Register.
Thanks, Laura.
Coming up, church bombing, new arrests in an attack in Cairo. From Syria and Iraq to the U.S., top nations where Christians experience persecution. Pakistan police say violence erupted at a Muslim rally supporting the country's harsh blasphemy laws. The rally commemorated the death of former governor who was killed for supporting a Christian woman. She was accused of blasphemy, saying offensive things against Islam. Officers used tear gas to disperse the rally. 3 more suspects have been arrested in connection to last month's suicide bombing at a Coptic Christian church in Cairo. Egypt says the 3 were planning to carry out other terrorist operations. One of the men was found with weapons and other explosives. Egypt's ISIS affiliate claimed responsibility for the bombing, but investigators have blamed the banned Muslim Brotherhood group. Several attacks in and around Baghdad killed dozens of people. The attacks included a suicide car bombing in a busy commercial area, killing 11 people. No one has claimed responsibility. Secretary of State John Kerry says the U.S. is making progress in the fight to push ISIS out of Iraq's second largest city.
Today, Kobani is free. Tikrit is free. Fallujah is free. Ramadi is free. And in time, Mosul, where there's about a 60% liberation of the eastern side of the community, is inexorably going to be free.
Some Iraqi refugees returned to Mosul this week, and the U.S.-backed offensive to retake the city gained momentum. It's estimated there are less than 250,000 Christians left in Iraq, one of the 4 largest Christian communities in the Middle East. Joining us now is Nina Shea, director of the Hudson Institute's Center for Religious Freedom. Nina, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What is the situation for Christians right now who are trying to return to their homes in Iraq?
Well, there are all the Christians of Nineveh had to flee. There were none left except a few isolated people who could not get out. And they're having a difficult time moving back because their lands have been destroyed. Their homes, businesses, and the infrastructure have all been destroyed by ISIS.
So when you come back in, you don't have running water, you don't have electricity.
It's uninhabitable.
Right. So, but they're still coming back.
They're coming back for short visits to take stock, and they're coming back to the camps and saying, we're going to wait, we don't have the security.
What about the UN? What are they doing?
I call the UN epic fail. They're doing next
hashtag
to, yes,
fail, right?
Next to nothing for the Christians. They have not given them humanitarian aid in Iraq, except for a few tarps about 2 years ago. And they are now planning 0 reconstruction aid distribution sites in the Christian areas of Nineveh. There are about 20 of these centers to distribute billions of dollars of assistance planned for Iraq, and none, 0, are in the Christian areas.
You know, Donald Trump is talking about restructuring intelligence operations, and as part of that, how is he going to combat radical Islam and stop this persecution? You're saying the UN isn't helping. Can Trump be the white knight?
Well, I think, yes, he can help, and enormously. I think we have to start giving our aid directly to the Christians because the UN is not channeling it to them. The other larger groups are getting it instead. I think that he has to really get on top of the education. There's a radicalization process even within the mainstream of the Middle East. Textbooks, and I've analyzed 4 sets of them from Saudi Arabia over the years, and that they, for example, don't have Israel on the map. They say that Christians aren't protected unless there's a protection contract. They call people apes and pigs. So there's, yeah.
What you're saying is that we need to get in there and help with education.
We have to stop the radicalization process, or this will never end.
One thing I saw interesting in the news today, the International Christian Concern released its annual Hall of Shame report. I'm sure you're familiar with it. And a list of countries where persecution is prevalent. For the first time, the U.S. is on the list. Now, how serious is this? I cannot imagine that it is.
Well, of course,
it's number 12, I think, on this list.
Yeah, it cannot compare to the genocide that we're seeing in Iraq and Syria of Christians, or what's happening in Egypt or Pakistan, for example, under radical Islam. But there is a disturbing trend in the United States to curtail religious freedom of Christians. So I'm glad it's starting a conversation about that in the international context. Of course, there's a lot of activism already in the United States, but it's in the international context.
Thank you, Nina Shea, director of the Hudson Institute's Center for Religious Freedom.
Thank you.
Up next, Rembrandt unveiling why artwork from a well-known Protestant is on display at the Vatican Museum. And China's Village of Ice, a look at one of the world's largest ice sculptures. From today's Mass on this Memorial Day of St. John Newman. A holy day has dawned upon us. Come, you nations, and adore the Lord. Today, a great light has come upon the earth. An exhibition by great Dutch artist Rembrandt, a Protestant, is on display in the Vatican. It's the first time the Vatican museums are hosting his works, and organizers say it's about more than beauty. Mary Shovlin reports from Rome.
The majesty of Rembrandt in one of the world's most majestic museums. 53 etchings are on loan from the Zorn Museum in Sweden as a thank you to Pope Francis for his recent visit to the country. For the Dutch ambassador to the Holy See, having Rembrandt's works displayed in the Vatican is not only a source of national pride, but a way to unite Catholics and Protestants.
His mother came from a Catholic family, his father Protestant, so it brings everything together. To have him here is a big symbol of bringing those worlds together.
The chief scientific director at the Vatican Museums says the art of Rembrandt teaches tolerance in a part of the world where Catholics and Protestants are divided.
To think about the tolerance that, at least in certain circumstances, were there in the Netherlands, can be an example that we should contemplate.
Experts say Rembrandt's prints should be examined at length with a magnifying glass to fully appreciate the details. The Dutch artist explores the concept of mystery in his prints more so than in his paintings.
He was curious about the medium. He was always experimenting, trying to come up with new ways of working with the etching, with the medium.
The exhibition, Rembrandt in the Vatican, Images from Heaven and Earth, is at the Vatican Museums until February 26th. In Rome, Mary Shovlin, EWTN News Nightly.
And to China, where museums and national landmarks come to ice. A sculpture festival is drawing very big crowds. In Harbin, China, ice sculptures of animals and cartoons and famous landmarks form a village. The event features an 1,100-foot ice slide, which took 500 builders to complete. Can I tell you, I know some children who would love to go down that. I might too, actually. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, I'm Lauren Ashburn. I'll see you again tomorrow night. Good night, and God bless.